Hi, my name is Roberto Rigobon. I'm a professor at the MIT Sloan School of Management, and I teach an executive program called Understanding Global Markets. In these particular volatile times, I would like to give you a commentary about what I think is going to happen in Europe and how the contagion will propagate from Greece to all the countries in the region. Something that is, I think is very important. I have been working for more than 17 years on the contagion literature, and if I have learned something about that time, is that the propagation happens on aspects that we don't measure. We are paying a lot of attention about how much money or how much bonds the French banks have of Greeks' debt and how much the Germans have of Greek debt. And certainly, if there's a default on Greece, part of that will affect French and German banks. But truly the way the propagation and the contagion happened are through things that we don't measure, things that are not obvious to the market. And that makes sense. If everybody knows that France is exposed to Greece, it should not be a surprise that when Greece collapses, French banks will have a loss. So in some sense, part of understanding what is going to happen in Greece is not only to understand what we measure, but understand the channels through which that propagation, that crisis, will hit other economies in ways that are unanticipated, ways that we are not measuring. And I think that we are not paying attention to that. We are not actually preparing to the possibility that the crisis will be propagated through different channels. We are concentrating mostly on France and German banks. And yes, French and German banks will be affected, but that's not the propagation. A second aspect that I think is very important in this crisis is that we are believing that the propagation of the crisis will happen once Greece defaults. And usually that's not the case. Usually the propagation happens when the market participants anticipate the ultimate collapse. So if Greece is going to be leaving the euro, the propagation happens before that, because market participants anticipate that and take actions. If Greece is going to default, they will anticipate that, and the contagion will happen before that. So two important lessons about contagion, about this particular event, is that the propagation will happen through channels that we are unanticipated, and second, it will happen much sooner than what we will be able to measure. That means that we have to be prepared. And the best way to be prepared for that is to accumulate reserves, to have room in the fiscal accounts, to do the savings in anticipation to the shock. And unfortunately, I see very little of that happening in Europe. These are the kind of conversations that we're having in our program in Understanding Macro. We spend half a day on Europe, as you can imagine, these days, the other half a day on the stock market and the unemployment in the United States, and then the other days we spend a lot of time on China and emerging markets. I hope to see you in one of our courses at MIT, and I would like to look forward to continuing this conversation. Thank you so much.